Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is a sunny Friday morning here in suburban Chicago, and I expect that it's going to be a hot one today. I can already tell it's going to be warm, and I just started my walk. So I was casting about for an episode to do today, and I thought, I happened across an interesting conversation piece on Boardgamegeek. The Blue Pig Pink Pig forum has a weekly thread that it's called "What Are You Playing This Week?" and it lists the week, and people, usually whoever's in charge of posting the thread, asks a question to kind of get conversation going, and then from there the conversation flows generally about the subject at the beginning of the week and about games played at the end of the week. It's a nice little community check-in spot, and I really enjoy it. Well, this week, Nick Shaw, co-designer of Welcome to Dino World and consultant on a variety of games that I've enjoyed, posted a thing sort of asking people for some their top 10 game lists, or different sort of top 10s, or what have you been enjoying lately? How are your favorites moving around? And so I thought I would talk a little bit, and then he posted, so a couple other people posted theirs. I posted my top 10 list out of my top 50. And then he posted his top 10 games but by mechanism. So he picked his top 10 mechanisms and his top game for each mechanism, which I thought was an interesting way to do it. I haven't done a top mechanisms thing yet. Seems like something I ought to do. But in the meantime, I thought it would be amusing to just take his top 10 mechanisms and tell you my favorite games from Nick's top 10 mechanisms. I'm going to do this. We'll see how fast it goes. I'm probably going to do it over 2 episodes because I don't imagine I'm going to have time to talk about games much if I go through a whole 10 in 15 minutes. I'm going to do the evens or the odds and then the evens, so that the last game I mention will be, I'm going to do evens then odds. So the last game I mention will be Nick's number 1 game mechanism. And I'll share my game, the game I enjoy in that category. I don't know if this is confusing as a subject or not, but this is how I'm doing it. Okay, so I'm going to start with Nick's 10th favorite mechanism, and then I'll tell you my preferred game. It seems like I ought to have kept his preferred game in here too, but I deleted them out, so sorry about that. I can't easily bring those back up, so. Alright, so Nick's 10th favorite mechanism is auction/bidding. So auction/bidding, what are some games? I did not prep this. I'm sort of reading it on the fly. So what I'm going to do is I'll think of a couple games that I've played that use that mechanism, and then see if there's one I like the best. There's Vault Wars, which has an interesting mechanism where one person knows what you're bidding on, and the other people get a peek of what you're bidding on. And then the interplay there is pretty interesting because you could get stuck buying something you don't really want. I'm only thinking of games where auctioning is the central piece of the game. There's a little auction at the beginning of Downforce. I guess is Castles of Mad King Ludwig kind of an auction game? You have these tile pieces that you are paying for. But you don't really bid on them, you just take them. The early Vladimir Suchy games use auctioning in an interesting way. 20th Century maybe. Or League of Six was an interesting sort of purely auction game. It had players thinking about which pieces they wanted, and you would have to choose whether to overbid somebody or go somewhere else. And then there's QE, Quantitative Easing, which is purely an auction game, but tied into the interesting element of not... Sorry, I'm just watching someone back out of their driveway and They went totally off the pavement onto the grass. I don't know what they're doing. So QE is an auction game which has the added element of not knowing how much the other players are bidding, just knowing that you're being overbid. I enjoyed Klondike Inc., I think it was called, the Red Raven game last year, which is an auction game. I had a good time playing it, although ultimately it wasn't my favorite because I did so well I clobbered everybody else, and the last half of the game really wasn't that fun because I was winning so much. And I'm not saying that to brag, I'm just saying it was an effect of me seeing the way the market went and reacting to that in a way that my opponents didn't realize I was doing until it was too late. I guess I'm going to say that my favorite auction/bidding game is Quantitative Easing. I really like Vault Wars, but it's a little long and a little finicky. I think Quantitative Easing is sort of a pure auction with a really interesting twist. The idea that you are manipulating your prices to try to figure out how to bid the most without then having bid too much. It's a really interesting dance to play. So Quantitative Easing is the game QE that I would say is my favorite auction/bidding game. That said, I wouldn't put auction/bidding in my top 10 mechanisms. So, all right, contract fulfillment. Oh boy. Now this is definitely a thing that I see in some games. It's in Clans of Caledonia that you are fulfilling contracts and you get points for that. It's in Via Nebula. In Via Nebula you score points by completing contracts. What other games have it? I know there are some pick up and deliver games that do, but I cannot think of any off the top of my head. This isn't a mechanism I have a ton of experience with, so I'm not sure that I'm able to articulate what the right answer would be for my favorite contract fulfillment game. Just had a weird experience. Myself and two other families all approached the same intersection at the same time, and we all just kind of did a clockwise dance around the intersection to avoid coming in contact with one another. Let's see. So, there's a lot of games that have... is Lords of Waterdeep a contract fulfillment game? You are trying to... Lords of Water... I think I'm going to say Lords of Waterdeep as a contract fulfillment game. You have the missions that you are trying to get your characters, your players to go on, your heroes or whatever they are, and you get them through worker placement, but then you're trying to fulfill these contracts as efficiently as you can and earn lots of points. I think that is probably going to be the way I go. That Lords of Waterdeep is my favorite contract fulfillment game, although, boy, Via Nebula is really good. I like Via Nebula a lot. So if you haven't played Via Nebula, that one, it's almost it's a route building game. That's the main mechanism. But there's all these resources on the board, and once you have a route established between your building site and the resources you need, you can then complete one of the contracts and earn points from it. And that works pretty well as far as games go. I think it's a lovely game, really nice looking, really cool components, easy to play, quick to play, a little faster and easier to understand than some of the other more complex Martin Wallace games. It's kind of like Steam Light. He says, never having played Steam, but whatever. So yeah, I think Via Nebula or Lords of Waterdeep. I'm going to say Via Nebula. I really like that game a lot, and I enjoyed the speed, the effort you have to make to try to connect and get the resources faster than your opponents, or in a way that claims the resources that your opponents wanted or claims the contract that your opponent wanted faster than they get it. So that works well. Contract fulfillment, I will say via Nebula. Card drafting. Well, I've played quite a few card drafting games. Of course, Seven Wonders is up there. Sushi Go. It's a Wonderful World is pretty great. I recently got Paper Tales. I liked that a lot, but we only played it once or twice. It's a little light. It's a little light for my taste. Well, I think It's a Wonderful World or Seven Wonders are definitely going to be in the top realm for that. I really like Seven Wonders. I love the system by which once you've built a thing, then you get the next thing for free. I like the dance of many different point scoring mechanisms. It's a Wonderful World solves the problem of resources that I think is the hardest part to get past in Seven Wonders. The idea that if you don't have the resources to build the thing you want to build, then you end up kind of stuck or having to constantly pay money to your opponents. So you can kind of really screw yourself over in the first half of the game in Seven Wonders in a way that's very hard to recover from. Whereas in It's a Wonderful World, all the cards are always worth some resources. So you could always kind of double down on taking cards for resources late in the game to try to get one or two big scoring things. Although, again, that can fail too. If your opponents are trying to take the same things you are, and you don't have an engine and they do, you're never going to catch up. But I suppose that's probably true of most games. I like the simplicity of Paper Tales. It's a kind of purity. It's got a purity in it that works really well. I'm trying to think if there are any other card drafting games. I did mention Sushi Go. It's a fun, light game, but never would make my favorite list. I think as much as I enjoy It's a Wonderful World, I think I'm going to come down and say Seven Wonders is my preferred of those games. I like the theme. I like like I said, the way that when you build a thing, it gives you free access to future things. I like the variety of point scoring mechanisms. All in all, Seven Wonders, there's a reason it's still popular as a card drafting game. So that's my favorite card drafting game. Dice rolling. I don't play very many dice rolling games. I have a few. There's, of course, Cromlech, the game that my design partner and I, Rob, published in 2015 under our imprint Rattlebox Games. 4 years ago. Well, we did the Kickstarter 4 years ago. We probably delivered it in 2016. So that's a fun game. Elder Sign is definitely a dice rolling game. The Harry Potter Rise of the Death Eaters is a pretty good one. I enjoyed the Time of the Daleks, the Doctor Who one. The second time we played it, the first time we screwed some stuff up in the rules and it wasn't great. The second time was pretty good. I'm trying to think what other dice rolling games. Oh! Escape Curse of the Temple. There is a tricky challenge now. So, do I enjoy the frantic pacing of Escape Curse of the Temple over the delicious odds balancing of Elder Sign? Because Elder Sign has a good story to it. Curse of the Temple is really fun and exciting. Yeah, it's Curse of the Temple. Escape Curse of the Temple is a great game. If you haven't played it, it's a real-time game. It's played with a soundtrack. It came with the CD, although you can download the MP3, thankfully. And the soundtrack is 10 minutes of sort of light jungle music with 3 intermittent panic modes. The first 2 being about a third and 2/3 of the way through the game, the third one being the end of the game. And the way it works is you all have these adventurers, and they start out in the middle of the board. And you roll these dice. Each player has 5 of their own dice with a combination of symbols on them. Each doorway, to be opened, you have to have 2 of the little symbols of a person walking. And I think there's 3 of those on a die. There's person walking, there's a torch, a key, and... oh no, there's 2 people walking, a torch, a key, a gold mask, and a black mask on each die. So in order to open a room, you need 2 people walking. And, a lot of games, you're like, oh, I rolled, I didn't get it, now what? In Escape Curse of the Temple, you are allowed to roll as fast as you want. Roll dice, pick them up, roll dice, pick them up. The two restrictions are, or the one restriction is, if you have a die with a black face on it, with a black mask on it, you can't pick that up. That's a cursed die and it's locked. The only way you can pick that up is if you roll a die with a gold mask on it. Then you can pick up 2 of the black mask dice. So it's a turnaround that way. If you roll, but you don't have to pick up your whole hand of dice either. So if you roll and you get one person, you could pick up the other 4 and re-roll. Then you get a second person. Then you can spend those by picking them up, and you can move your pawn and draw a tile to reveal the next room. Some of the rooms have treasure gems on them, and when you reveal a tile with that gem on it, you put the gems in there, and then you score the gems by completing another task, a certain number of torches or a certain number of keys. And you keep doing this, and you and the other 4 players are doing this all, up to 5 or maybe 6 even, are doing this all at the same time, as quickly as you can. If your dice get locked, you can have other people help you. So if you are in the room with someone else and they roll a gold mask, you can unlock 2 of your dice if they spend it. So there's some cooperative elements to it. Then when the panic starts, you have a minute, I think, to get back to that central room because, danger is happening through the temple. If you aren't back in that central room by the time the gong sounds, then you have to lose a die, which is really painful. It happens again about 2/3 of the way through the game. And the third time, by the last part of the game, everyone has to have found the exit and rolled enough keys to get out of the exit in order to leave. The number of keys you need goes down based on how much treasure the group has found. The more treasure you found, the fewer keys you need. So you have to find a certain amount of treasure to get out as well. If everyone doesn't get out, you lose. So there's no individual losing; it's a team thing. Really fun. Just talking about it now makes me want to play it again. Classic. I have the big box, which comes with a bunch of expansions that I've hardly used because the base game is so good. But the expansions add traps and special powers and all kinds of stuff that really makes the game pretty exciting. So that's Escape Curse of the Temple. I've also heard good things about Escape Zombie City, but I've never tried it myself. And that would be my favorite dice rolling game. Finally, Area Control, my favorite area control game. This one's tricky. I don't generally play a lot of area control games. I've played a few. There's certainly the Martin Wallace games. You've got your Mythotopia. It's a good one that uses area control, I guess. I enjoy Radis, which I guess is not area control either. Honestly, I'm not sure how much I understand what area control is. I feel like it's often associated with dudes on a map, the idea of trying to occupy territories, which again is that the Martin Wallace card building games, things like A Study in Emerald or Mythotopia or A Handful of Stars, those all have that element to it. Even A Few Acres of Snow. I really like all of those. This last year I've been playing Nanty Narking here and there, and I really enjoy that element of you're putting your pieces in, you're moving around, you're manipulating each other. That one's really good. I'm trying to think if I have any non-Martin Wallace area control games. Star Wars Rebellion, perhaps? Maybe Star Wars Rebellion. Is that an area control game? I think it is. You have these planets, you're trying to take them over, you're undermining each other. Now, the win conditions aren't built on area control. But the gameplay is significantly influenced by what areas you have. Particularly your ability to build material and muster troops. So all those things thought about, I think I'm going to say Star Wars Rebellion is my preferred area control game. Lots of really interesting stuff happening there. And really enjoyable experience. in a theme I very much enjoy, in a package I enjoy. Yeah, so Star Wars Rebellion is my favorite area control game. Well, that's my personal top games for each of Nick Shaw's favorite game mechanisms for the first 5. Like I said, I'm going to save the list and I'll do the other half as the next episode. Well, hopefully that was an amusing meditation on Brendan's limited knowledge of certain game mechanisms that Nick Shaw likes. If you want to comment on your favorites in these, please pop over to Boardgamegeek Guild 3269 and let me know which of these games you enjoy most. And I look forward to hearing from you. So, until next time, thanks for joining me on my walk today, and I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.